Welcome to No Face Meals. Today we're going to make a basic seitan recipe. Seitan is a very high protein, low carb, low calorie protein source. It's made out of the wheat berry of the wheat. It's basically the starch has been taken out of the wheat, and then that's what you have left. It's very versatile. You can put, it can be made into anything. It could be made, you can flavor it as you are making it. You can make it plain and then flavor it. It takes on the flavor of what you're cooking. It's just a very versatile, high protein, vegan kind of roast. For people who, like me, who are vegetarian, it's a godsend. Seitan has been made for thousands of years. The first recorded incidence of it being used is back in the 3rd century. Buddhist monks used to make it. Seitan in Japanese actually translates into made of proteins. So that's what it is. Once you make it at home, you won't want to buy it because it's just that good. So to get started today, I took a medium onion and chopped it up, sauteed it. I like mushrooms in mine. If you don't like mushrooms, you don't have to put it in. It will give your roast that brown color, so it's good for coloring, but I like the taste of it too. I also have a couple of tablespoons of fresh minced garlic. Again, something if you like, put it in. If you don't put it in. Saute that up with a little olive oil. As you can see, it's all nice and cooked just the way God intended it. So we'll put that aside. Turn it off. Doesn't need to be hot because we're going to mix it into our seitan. I do want to show you about mushroom. People do strange things with mushrooms. They see it and they go, ooh, ick. They want to run it underwater. Mushrooms are made of 90% water. If you run them underwater, they're just going to soak up more water, and it's going to water down your dish. And you really don't want that. So if you have a vegetable brush, that's all you need. Brush it off. If you don't have a fancy schmancy brush, as I don't ever have, take a paper towel, wipe it off. That's all you need to do. Wipe it off, chop it up, throw it in your pan. It's good to go. That's all you need. Okay, so what are the main ingredients in seitan? Well, your very first thing you want to get is vital wheat gluten. Okay, usually can be found in most grocery stores. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on any health food store, Whole Foods, whatever. This happens to be a very popular brand. You can use any kind of the vital wheat gluten. You can use. There is a method. There is a method where you can use regular flour, but it's very time consuming, and yeah, I'm not gonna do it because that's just not the way I roll. So you need this. Another thing I think you need is your nutritional yeast. It's not regular yeast. It's not brewer's yeast. It's nutritional yeast. Okay. What this does, what I think it does, is I think it takes out any kind of bitterness that sometimes you get with some of the vegan things, as in tofu, or sometimes raw flours, which I forgot to get out of the pantry. We do need a little bit of flour with this. It also gives it, some people think it tastes a little nutty, some people think it tastes a little cheesy. I just think it tastes yum. So this is something I think you need. Most people who've had my seitan roast agree. Today we're gonna make more of a sausage type roast. You can use any kind of seasoning you want. You can, like I said, make it plain. I have used a bottle of Italian dressing before. I've used just the packets of dressing before. Any kind of seasoning you'd like. We try to do the low sodium because we just don't need all that salt. We figure you can salt whenever you get it on your plate. It lends itself to any oven. So, how do you make this stuff? Well, I mean, cameraman's saying, what about this stuff? This is your seasonings. I'm using sage. Yes, you can see I'm not real fancy with what my brands are. Good old-fashioned black pepper. Because we already have garlic and onion in our vegetable mix. I'm going to show you what we'll do with that later. Alright. We'll wipe out our bowl a little bit since we have those in there. What you do. This is so difficult. And once you see it done, you're going to be like, oh, really? I can get all this for all that? It's very economical to make. You need 1.5 cups of the vital wheat gluten. There, I'll get it out. Hey, this is before I had coffee, so. That's 1/2 cup. That's a cup. Okay, approximate, guys. I'm from a southern state where we have a pinch of this and a pinch of that. There you go. So I'm calling that my 1.5. I need the brown rice flour, please, cameraman, Mr. Cameraman. To that, we're gonna add my yum. I'm gonna add, and you can use as much or as little. I use 2 tablespoons. Some people only like the 1. It just depends on how you feel on it. I like 2. 2 tablespoons of the yum nutritional yeast. You're also gonna need a little bit of flour. Now, when you talk about flour and seitan, you want to try and go with your protein flours, your bean flours or your brown rice flours, something that has a little bit of nutritional value. Try to stay away from just your plain all-purpose white or wheat. You know, try to get something that's got a little protein, because any amount of protein is a good thing. Now I want to tell you, you only need like a fourth of a cup. Okay, it's sort of like making bread. You know, a lot of this is going to be what it feels like. And once I show you what it looks like when it feels right, you'll get it. You'll understand it. I mean, you can't argue with something that tastes this good and for a 2-ounce serving has 20, before you add anything else to it, has 20 grams of protein in it, 10 carbs, and 114 calories. You slice it, it looks like steak, it looks like, I've fooled people with it. They're like, this is meat. And I'm like, no, it's not. It really isn't. Want to hand me a spoon, hon? Okay, now we need to kind of mix the dry ingredients. We're going to get to the seasonings here in a minute. But I want to make sure I have all that flour and the wheat gluten. I'm going to make a new word yet. You know, I want all that mixed evenly in there. Now, seasonings. Again, this is to your taste. Whatever you like, whatever you think would taste good. I usually try and do probably no more, because we're really kind of sensitive to heat. If you like more heat, add more. If you don't, that's okay. About a half teaspoon of pepper. You notice I'm not putting any salt in this. Again, we're trying to do the low sodium. Tastes just as good without the salt, but we're used to the low sodium. Now I'm making this a sausage kind, and sometimes you can get the lid off, sometimes you can't on this. Kids, don't try that at home. That's not what it's supposed to do. Now this will make 2 smaller loaves. I like to do it in 2 smaller loaves. There's a reason for it, and that's about half a teaspoon, half a tablespoon of that. The reason why I make it into 2 is because my steamer system will allow me to do just the 2 smaller ones. If you have a steamer system that allows you to make one big old roast, go for it. I also like it to have the 2, because I don't like cutting it all at the same time. I don't like mine to so far it hasn't lasted long enough to dry out, but just in case it might, you know, one of those things. And also, I have had a friend make this huge batches multiple times. They freeze theirs. They say it does freeze beautifully. I've never frozen mine because I don't have enough yet. It doesn't last long enough for me to freeze any of it. So, you look at it and say, you know, does it have enough? I don't think so. Now it does. Anyway, we put in about a tablespoon of the sage, because I want it to be heavily saged, because this is more like a sage roast. That was funny.
Sausage.
Well, sausage, sage roast, whatever. Is it still going? Okay. If you want to do something like an apple sage roast, you can. You know, cook your apples and puree it. You know, have fun with this. Experiment with it, because you can do that. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to get my sous chef, okay, who's my cameraman, to puree the mushroom, garlic, and onion mixture, because that needs to be pureed. Okay, what we've done here is we put that mushroom, onion, and garlic mixture into a processor. And it's got all that nice olive oil still in it, which is why you don't add any oil to this. It has very little fat. You just use the fat that you use to saute in. And you put this, and you're gonna process. Okay, what you're looking for here is almost like a paste. Okay, which I think we are there. Okay, now we're gonna add this. Right in there. This is where it's gonna get messy. If you've got kids that would love to do this, because it's gonna get messy. It's like it's on the same principle as making bread. Now, if you don't like it to be, this is a sweet onion. If you don't like it sweet, use just a regular white onion. If you like, some people like a little more salt to balance it out. You can put more salt in it. You'll have to play with that flavor. I usually don't put salt in this because I use a flavor pack, a dressing pack, a dip pack, whatever you want to call it. We use that, and it already has all the sodium that we really want in it. This one doesn't have any sodium whatsoever. We trying to keep that blood pressure down. You know, once you get over 50, you have to really watch those things. Now, need to talk about liquids here. Okay, as you can see, it is not coming together because it needs more liquid. Now, I have in the past cooked tofu with my mushroom mixture, and I found that I didn't need any water at all. That was enough liquid to make it do what I needed it to do. The recipe calls for vegetable broth, which is fine. You can do that. I have used bottled dressing. When you use bottled dressing, you don't need to add any more water to it. That's enough. I use good old-fashioned water. It works just fine. I find that my flavorings I've got enough flavorings in there that I don't need anything else. So before we add the water, this is a trick I want you all to remember, because you'll learn as you go here. You're going to need 2 pieces of foil, about yay big. And when you have your foil, and this is a step that I always do. Why? Because I'm always afraid it's going to stick. I get a nice quality cooking spray, which is a godsend to womankind, cookkind, whatever. And you just lightly spray. You're just going to lightly spray that foil. Why do you do this before you add your water? Because you're going to get your hands messy. And if you try and do this before, you're going to have Seitan mix all over the outside. You're going to have to clean that up. Who wants to do extra work? Now, I do want to talk, before we start, we're going to get our water boiling, because I do steam this. That's what keeps the moisture in. Now, people say, I don't have anything to steam this in. They have such big... Oh no, I don't have a steamer. Well, neither do I. Neither did the gal that I got the original recipe from. Work with what you got. You really don't have to have big fancy smashy to do this. I use a stock pot. Tell you, this is real fancy, people. Now, once upon a time, we had fry daddies. We had 2. Never need these. I don't know why I just keep ending up back in there. You take one, you stick it upside down. Take the other one, it goes right side up. Then you add your water. Then you will put your lid on it and you will steam it. That's my system. It's that simple. If you have a steamer, use it. Go for it. People ask me why I chose steaming over other methods. You can boil your seitan. You can bake your seitan. I've always steamed it. When you boil it, it seems like you lose a lot of the flavor that you put in, and I put flavor in my seitan, so I don't want to lose any of that. When I read that when you bake seitan, it can blow up in your oven, yeah, that was like, no, I don't even want to try that method. I'm sure people have good success with that, but yeah, I'd be the one that would be scraping seitan off the inside of my oven. So before we add the liquid to our seitan, I'm going to get the steamer ready to go. I'm going to get it on the stove, and I'm going to get the water heated. Why do we do this before we put the liquid in? Because you're going to get seitan on your hands. You do it before, you're going to leave seitan stuff. Because it's going to be where you can work with it, but it's going to be, it's going to be sticky. So, unless you want to, constantly be trying to, wash things off, as you go, it's just better to get it together first. Plus, you need the water boiling all the time while you steam. Now, when I say that, people kind of freak. It really isn't that hard. What you're going to do after you get your seitan wrapped in your tin foil, and you get it on the stove and it's boiling and steaming, you steam for half an hour, you flip it, you steam. I steam for another 45. Why 45 minutes? Because you have to bring that water back up to the boil. You're going to put more water in, and you're going to bring it up to the boil when you flip it. So it's going to be evenly steamed on both sides. So it takes a little bit of time for that water to come up to a boil and get good steam on it. So that's the reason why it needs an extra 15 minutes. I have found it needs an extra 15 minutes on the second half. That's why I do it the way I do it. Anyway, I'm going to get this together and get it on the stove. Okay, now you need about a cup of liquid, and what I do is I put good old-fashioned water, and I kind of rinse out all the goodness that is left in my processor, because why leave all that goodness in there? Use that. Add a little bit at a time, because it's like making bread. Weather conditions is going to matter. Okay, it's time to get rid of that now. Got to get your fingers in there. Weather conditions is going to matter. Your temperature in your house is going to matter. If it's if it's raining, it's snowing, whatever. We've got snow here in April, so that sucks. But if you add too much liquid, you always just add just a little more flour. It's not a big deal, And believe it or not, this will turn out to be a nice dark brown roast. Okay, see, now that didn't need quite as much liquid as it depends on what else you put in it, how much mushrooms, how much liquid that kind comes up with. But you see, when I talk about the feel of something, with seitan, to get the texture that you want, you have to knead it for at least 2 minutes. And when I talk about kneading, this is what I'm talking about. If you make bread or any other kind of yeast product, you know what I'm talking about. You see how it's kind of stretchy, it's kind of sticky, but not bad. This is what you're wanting. This is the time you can also check your spices in it and see if you need anything else. Usually I do that by smell. Got enough sage in there. You don't need no more. I didn't add any salt. or any, or because again, we're trying to do the low sodium. Um, I have a husband that has blood pressure, and as you get older, you just have more of those problems, so don't add to it. But if you want to add a little salt, that's good. You can do that. It's all pretty much to your taste. I like to put more fresh vegetables and herbs in it. As the season goes on and we do more farmers markets, I'll be coming home with more fresh herbs, and you'll be seeing a lot more of this with your fresh herbs in it, which I cannot wait till the farmers markets start, because they're just way cool. I get most of my stuff. People say, how long do you need this for? I need this for at least 2 minutes. The longer you need it, the different the texture it becomes. The more dense it becomes, the more chewy it becomes, the more kind of like meat-like it becomes, the more it'll hold up. And that's what kneading is, you know. And see why I talk about this one's not too bad. Sometimes if you're using tofu, it's a little stickier, and depending on your ingredients, even a difference in mushrooms, portobellos tend to be a little more sticky, but you can see that there's a little bit of ick, well, good ick, but there's a little bit of stuff on your fingers, so it's just good to have all your stuff ready. We're just waiting for the water to come up to the boil in our steamer. So this is what you're looking for. Okay? See how it's stretched? It's got stretch to it. That's what you're looking for. Now you can make meatballs and steam them. You can make patties and steam them. We've even kicked around the idea of making hot dogs and steaming them. You can do any, you can do all that. It really lends itself to just about anything you'd want. But what I do for roasts is I make it like this, because it fits in my steamer. Isn't that pretty? It's going to even be prettier whenever it's done. Then you take your tin foil. You want to start at the edge, and I roll it. Just like that. And then you twist the ends, because you want it to stay in there. You don't want it to go wandering around your pot. One down. Do the same thing, and mine are never even. I never divide mine even for some reason. I just can't. It's just not in me. So I don't ever worry about it. One's a little bit bigger than the other. As far as serving size goes, we normally get about 3 servings, 3 2-ounce servings out of each roast. So if you've got a bigger family, you probably want to have both these roasts. It's very filling. So, you know, I know the husband took it to a group, and I don't know how many was there, but there was 8 people there, and they ate both roasts pretty much. So, and begged for the recipe. So there you go. No good deed. But I've had many people ask me for this recipe, and after I've given it to them, they said, okay, how do you do this? So this is why we're doing this episode of No Face. Sometimes you need a visual. So this is what we're doing. Giving you the visual. And you twist it. You can make them bigger. You know, you can make them all at one. They will steam, they will puff up. I do it that way because of my steaming situation. If you have a bigger steamer, you can make it all in one. Also, we don't eat one roast at one time, so it's nice to have one roast does us for 3 meals. So uh, it's nice to have, um, keep it whole until you need it, you know, till you slice it. Believe it or not, this is really good cold too. Like on a cold sandwich, it's good. I used to be the biggest carnivore in the world. Um, like I said, I'm from downstate in the great state of Illinois, and we like our butter and our biscuits and our meat. You know, my dad was a big meat and taters kind of guy. Um, Unfortunately, that led to me being extremely morbidly obese, which led me to be very diabetic, very asthmatic, incredibly high blood pressure. It got to the point where I knew something had to change, or I would not be here very, very long. Um, Luckily, my spouse, his dad was a vegetarian back before we had all this good stuff that was prepackaged, and so it made sense. Plant-based diet helps maintain your blood sugar levels, and that's when we decided to go vegetarian. And it helped me not only do that, my blood pressure went down, my diabetes got better. I dropped the first 300 pounds that I lost just by diet and exercise. You'll hear me say moisture is a big thing for me. I'm a gastric bypass patient, so things get caught if things are too dry. So that's where I'm coming from. That's part of my journey. If you only use some of the vegetarian vegan recipes once in a while, you're still doing yourself a world of good. Not only yourself, but it's more sustainable, so it makes more sense to me, which is a huge leap from where I came from. Believe it or not, kids will adapt to the vegetarian diet. My dogs beg for Seitan. Okay, they come from the wolf family, and they beg for my Seitan. So, you know, I've had people who who have started doing more meatless things. They have noticed their weight dropping, their blood pressure coming back to normal, their diabetes becoming much more manageable for them. It's just a good way of living. It's more sustainable. If you don't think you can totally give up your meat, no one's asking you to. That's a personal choice. But in this day and age of not knowing where your food is sourced, you know how we made this, so you know where it's sourced. So I mean, just some things to think about. I know a lot of people get really intimidated with vegetarian and vegan recipes because they don't know what to do with this. That's why we're doing no face meals, because we're going to show you what you can do with this, and some really great recipes. So if it helps a couple of you out to try some of these and incorporate them into your diet, then we'll be more than happy with what we're doing. So we're going to let this steam a little bit longer, and then we're going to flip it, and then we're going to show you what else that has to be done for it. Okay, so it's steamed now for half an hour. And you need something to dig it out of here, because they're in foil and it's going to be hot. So tongs are great. You can get them for not a whole lot of money. So first we're going to take one out. And I'm going to set it to the side. I need some water, hon. And you want to check your water. Usually you're going to have to add a little bit more water. And that's fine. Which is why you have to steam it a little bit more, because you got to bring it back up to a boil. And that's probably good enough right there. Okay. And we got one over there. We're going to take the other one, and we're going to dig her out. And you want to just flip it over so it's resting. And that's another reason why I put it first, I put tails up. Now we're going to go ahead, take the tails and do tails down. Why do I do it that way? So I can remember. Then you put the lid back on, and we're going to steam that for another 45 minutes. And you don't really have to watch it. You just let it steam. It's not gonna do anything. Just let it steam. Go and do what you need to do. Take your shower. Get ready for the day. After it steams, we're going to take it out, and I put it on racks to let it cool, bring it to room temperature. That's so it's just, get some of that steam out of there, and to so it's easier to unwrap. After that, you're gonna stick it in an airtight bowl and stick it in the refrigerator and let it set for 8 hours. That's so that you'll get that firmness you need to slice it. Then you're ready to go. So tomorrow we're going to be slicing it up and showing you some things with it after it's set. I know I kind of went through the recipe and the ingredients a little bit fast for some people. So we're going to have them all written out, and all the instructions, all the recipes are going to be on our Facebook page, which is on Blessing Outreach or Blessing TV, or it's going to be on our YouTube channel, Blessing TV. So lots of ways you can get hold of this recipe, but I'm hoping that once you see it's done and kind of look at the recipe, you're not going to have a problem with it. Okay, our seitan is ready to be taken out of my oh so fancy steamer. It will be hot. As you can see, it has kind of puffed up quite a bit. Now I'm going to take it over. You're taking out your seitan, and what you're going to do is, if you have a rack, I would suggest you putting it on the rack, tails up, with a towel underneath. That's just so in case any of the steam, it will come out and you won't ruin anything on your table. But you're going to let this go ahead and come to room temperature, cool down to room temperature. And then you're going to put it in an airtight container and put it in your fridge for 8 hours. And that's going to set the texture. So I usually use a glass container for airtight. I put it in here. I'll unwrap it from the foil, put it in here. You stick it in your fridge after it cools down and let it set for 8 hours before you cut it. So another steamer that we own, it's a little bit smaller, and it's common for it to get in your cookware set, is a two-part steamer. If you have one of these, you might be able to cook one of them in there. If you have a bigger one, that can be used too. You just put your water in the bottom of one of the pans, and then you put the steamer on top. We're going to steam green beans in this one. We're going to show you how our roast turned out, which that was a little more than I need to put in there. But that's okay. Don't need any water when you steam vegetables this way. And you put the lid on top and it will steam just fine. So you can cut it as thick or as thin as you'd like. We're going to have it on buns, so I'm going to cut it in rounds. The ends might be a little bit thicker because of it's twisted, you twisted the aluminum foil. I'll get it. As you can tell, it is quite firm, but it's not dry. It's moist, it's meat-like. You could probably slice this on a slicer and get it a little thinner. It all depends on how you want that application to go. I'm going to just slice a couple more slices. Like I said, you could do this thicker if you'd like. I like to slice it cold, then heat it up. Mainly because we're not going to eat the whole thing. If you have a family, you could probably heat the whole thing up and eat it that way. In fact, you probably could eat the whole thing. But there you have it. There's your seitan. That's the way it looks. This is almost got a marbled look to it. It is a sage sausage-like seitan because of the sage, the seasonings that I put in it. You can put any seasoning you like. This is why this recipe is so great, is because you can actually go to your cabinet and look at the seasonings that you may have bought, but you really don't know what you're going to do with them, and so you can play with it in here. Like I've got some curry spices that we're going to play with. We got a whole grinder of different spices that is from one country that you can play with and see how that goes. This does not have any sodium whatsoever in it. I didn't put any soy sauce. I didn't put any salt. The recipe does call for soy sauce. I never use soy sauce. Usually I use Worcestershire. Totally up to you. If you're trying to do more of a salt-free, then don't add it. If you're okay with the salt, go ahead and add it. This recipe lends itself to any kind of flavoring. You don't have to put any flavoring at all in it if you don't want to. You can make it completely plain, and then you could add sauces to it, and it'll take on the flavor of whatever sauce you put in it. But we like to have our flavorings in the roast, in the actual seitan. So when you heat it up, you already have all your spices in there. So you could make seitan that tastes like sausage, like beef, like chicken, like seafood, or any combination of that. I'm kind of wondering if I can't do like a gumbo seitan, which gumbo is kind of my favorite thing in the world to eat. So I think that would be kind of cool to have that on a sandwich. So anyway, this is a basic seitan recipe. Put in whatever flavorings you want. Have fun with it. You can't really mess it up. I mean, unless you throw sugar in it and it's sweet, then you might not like it. But other than that, put a teaspoon of this and a tablespoon of that and see where it takes you. Now, I know what you're thinking. This doesn't look like much. But you understand, remember, I'm a gastric bypass, so it doesn't take much. But with what I have on my plate, it has 28 grams of protein on this plate, as it is. That's the equivalent of a porterhouse steak. It has probably a fourth of the calories that the steak would have. I can't see where this is a bad thing to do. It has, the only fat it has is with the little bit of mayonnaise I have, and we did use the mayonnaise with the olive oil, and there is a little bit with the cheese, but that's the only fat. It has no sodium in it, other than what's in the mayonnaise, which I don't think we have. Yeah, 115 milligrams of sodium per tablespoon, and we probably don't eat a tablespoon between two of us in 3 days. So very little sodium, very little fat, very few calories. but still you have 28 grams of protein, which is exactly what you want to have. If you look at my spouse's plate, he's added a green salad and he has about the same amount of protein. He's got the 28. He doesn't have the couscous, but he does have extra cheese on his. So with what he has on his plate is about the same amount of protein, carbs, and fat content. So this is, and later in the series we're going to show you how to make the couscous, because it is one of my favorite grains. So this is No Face Meals, where the meals are the stars.